What if everything you've been told about being good is actually the thing that's keeping you small? So in my last video, we talked about Glinda and how being liked isn't the same as being good. But now I want to talk about the flip side, about Elphaba, the character who everyone calls wicked, but who's actually the only one standing for what's right. And this is going to hit so different because Elphaba's story is basically what happens whenever you choose integrity over acceptance. When you choose to stand for something even when the world turns against you. When you refuse to shrink in order to make others feel comfortable. Because by the end of this video, you're going to understand why being misunderstood might actually just be the price for living with integrity. And why that's not just okay, but actually necessary. So let me tell you about the Elphaba paradox. But first, if you're new here, hi angels, I'm Jo, and on this channel we talk all about how to achieve your dream life and how to use productivity in order to achieve the life that you actually want to live. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, then this might be the place for you. So back to the Elphaba paradox. Elphaba is green, literally born different. And from her very first moment at Shiz University, she knows it. She's developed this defensive armor. No, I'm not seasick. Yes, I've always been green. No, I didn't eat grass as a child. She gets there before anyone else can reject her first. Sounds familiar? Because I think we all have our green skin. That thing about us that feels different, wrong. Maybe it's your body, your background, your personality, your ambition. That thing you always try to hide or apologize for or explain away before anyone else can judge you for it. But here's what Elphaba teaches us. What if your difference isn't your weakness? What if it's your power? Throughout the movie, Elphaba's green skin becomes less about shame and more about power. When Fiyero asks her, is that defensiveness a recent development? That's the moment. Because he's not scared about her difference. He's curious about it. And slowly, Elphaba stops preemptively defending herself and starts owning who she is. This is the first lesson. Stop apologizing for what makes you different. Your uniqueness isn't something to manage or minimize. It's not something that needs explaining. It's the thing that will make you unforgettable, but only if you own it. Because the world will always try to make you smaller, more palatable, more comfortable for them. And you could spend your whole life trying to contort yourself into shapes to fit their boxes. Or you can be like Elphaba and say, this is who I am, and if you can't handle it, then that's not my problem to fix. Now let's talk about the moment that kind of defines Elphaba's entire character arc. So she goes to meet the wizard. She's so excited because she thinks finally someone sees her potential. Finally she'll be accepted. Finally she will belong. And then she discovers the wizard is a fraud. Worse, that he's the one oppressing the animals. And Madame Morrible wants Elphaba to join them, to use her power to help control everyone. And this is where everything splits. Glinda stays. She chooses comfort, acceptance, safety. She chooses the castle. But Elphaba, she flies, literally defying gravity, and chooses freedom over belonging. And the world called her wicked for it. Let that sink in. Elphaba sees injustice, actual oppression of innocent beings, and refuses to participate. She stands up for those who can't stand up for themselves. She chooses what's right over what's easy. This is what happens when you try to stand for something, when you refuse to go along with systems that are fundamentally broken. When you speak truth that makes powerful people uncomfortable, you get labeled difficult, angry, too much, wicked. Think about it in real life. How many times have you seen somebody speak up about something wrong and get punished for it? How many people who fight for justice get called radical? The label wicked is what happens when you threaten comfortable people's comfort. And I'm not gonna lie to you, there is a cost. Elphaba loses her friendship with Glinda, at least temporarily. She becomes a fugitive. Everyone thinks she's evil, she's alone. That's the price of moral courage. You will lose people. You will be misunderstood. You will be lonely sometimes. But what's the alternative? to stay quiet, watching injustice happen and saying nothing because speaking out might cost you friendships, because you're afraid that you might be viewed differently, that people might see you as cringe? Is neglecting your own moral compass and consciousness really worth all that? And that's what Glinda does. And yeah, she gets to keep her popularity, her status, her comfort. But what does she lose? Her integrity, her self-respect, the only person whom she's ever really truly loved, her best friend Elphaba. But Elphaba, on the other hand, loses everything externally but gains everything internally. She becomes who she was always meant to be: powerful, certain, uncompromising. There's this beautiful quote from one of my favorite songs in the film, the musical, where Elphaba says that she's through with accepting limits just because someone said they're so. She refuses to let anyone else define her own limitations. She refuses to shrink. And this is crucial because Elphaba didn't start the story this way. At the beginning, she's insecure, defensive, desperate for approval. She wants Madame Marble to like her. She wants the wizard's validation. She even wants Glinda's friendship so bad that she's willing to be the butt of the jokes. But by defying gravity, she has completely transformed. And it's not because good things happened to her. It's because she chose herself, especially when it was hard. One of Elphaba's biggest transformations is her finding her own voice. At the beginning, she's silenced, told to hide in the back, not raise her hand, stay quiet so that she doesn't draw attention to her green skin. But as the story progresses, her voice becomes her power. Literally, her magic is connected to her voice, to speaking her truth, to refusing to be silenced. And by the end of the first act, she's belting, defying gravity on her own broomstick. She's not whispering anymore, she's not hiding. She's taking up space and making herself heard. And I know sometimes as women, we prioritize other people's opinions over our own. We shrink ourselves so we don't stand out, sacrificing our own interests and refusing to take that first step towards what we actually want because we're afraid. Afraid of what others would think, afraid of their judgment. And I know because I've been there. But I didn't let my fears stop me from chasing my dreams. If I had given into that fear, you wouldn't even be watching this video today. So if you've been wanting to finally take your dreams more seriously, to finally take that first step towards your goals, I've put together a free PDF breaking down step by step how I overcame the fear of being seen and basically freed myself from the cage that was my own mind. And I'm also building a community of like-minded, badass, ambitious women where we can encourage and be inspired by one another. So I'll leave the links to those down below if you're interested. Your voice matters most when it's uncomfortable to use it. When staying quiet would be easier. When speaking up might cost you something. That's when your voice matters most. Because if you only speak when it's safe, then you're not really speaking, you're just performing. Elphaba teaches us something profound. Your reputation matters less than your character. The whole world thinks she's wicked. History will remember her as the Wicked Witch of the West. Her reputation is destroyed. But she knows the truth. She knows that she stood up for something that mattered. She knows she didn't compromise. She knows she chose freedom over acceptance. And that internal knowing, that's worth more than any amount of external approval. How many of us are making choices based on how we'll be perceived rather than what we actually believe in? How many of us are curating our lives for maximum likability instead of maximum integrity? Because I've done this. I've kept quiet when I should have spoken up because I didn't want to be that girl who always had something to say. I've laughed along with things that bothered me. I've shrunk myself to fit into the spaces that were never really meant for the fullest version of me. And every time I did that, I lost a little bit of myself. Elphaba's green skin, her rejection, her labeling as wicked, all of it forges into who she becomes. She doesn't become powerful in spite of her struggles. She becomes powerful because of them. Adversity reveals who you really are. It strips away the performance and shows you what you're actually made of. So when you face rejection for being yourself, when people call you too much, too intense, too difficult, when standing up for what you believe costs you popularity, remember Elphaba. Remember that being called wicked by a broken system might actually just mean that you're doing something right. Because look at the contrast. Glinda is loved by everyone. She's called good, she's adored, popular, perfect, but she's complicit in oppression. She stays in the castle while innocent people suffer. She chooses her image over her integrity. Elphaba is hated. She's called wicked, she's hunted, feared, misunderstood. But she's fighting for justice. She's standing up for the voiceless. She's refusing to compromise her values for comfort. So who's actually good? And speaking of standing up for something even when it costs you everything, in the next video, I want to talk about Cynthia Erivo's story and her journey to playing Elphaba. Because her story of breaking down every barrier to claim her space, of being told that she didn't belong and having to prove everyone wrong, of using her difference as her power, that's a real life Elphaba story. But for now, here's what I want you to take away. Being misunderstood is often the price of integrity. Being called difficult is often the cost of having boundaries. Being labeled as too much is often what happens when you refuse to be less. And that's okay, because your job isn't to be universally loved. Your job is to stand for something that matters to you. Elphaba could have stayed. She could have helped the wizard. She could have been accepted, celebrated, given power and status. But she would have had to compromise everything that she believed in. She would have had to participate in the oppression. She would have had to betray herself. And she said, no, I'd rather fly alone than to stand with you. So here's my challenge to you. This week, speak one truth that you're afraid to speak. Stand up for one thing that you believe in, even if it costs you some popularity points. Choose integrity over likability just once and see how it feels. Because becoming your own it girl isn't about being liked by everyone. It's about being true to yourself even when it's lonely, even when it's hard, even when the world calls you wicked for it. What's one area of your life that you've been shrinking in order for you to feel accepted? What would it look like to choose yourself instead? Because Elphaba's story shows us that sometimes the greatest act of courage is refusing to be anyone but exactly who you are. So make sure you stick around for the next video where we will talk about how Cynthia Erivo lived out this lesson in real life. Until next time, take care of your heart, your mind, and your dreams. I'll see you in the next video very soon.